Hey guys, my name is Ryan and welcome to Overwatch Central. So this is more of a news roundup and actually I think a big piece of news when it comes to Overwatch's future that has nothing to do with the game actually. Riot announced that they're working on a character-based tactical shooter that would fit into Overwatch's genre, and I kind of wanted to leave my impressions on why actually I think that's a really good thing for the future of Overwatch as it goes on. Before we get into that though, and also the 8GB patch, which in context is a very big patch, almost half of the size of the game total. I wanted to say to myself, Abiska will be headed to EGX alongside Omen by HP. If you are attending and maybe want to win some cool stuff, then pay attention at the end of the video where we'll go over exactly what we're doing and when we're doing it. But also a big shout out to Omen by HP, they've been great to work with so far. More at the end of this video. If you paid attention to the size of the recent Overwatch patch, it was 8GB, which as I said is pretty big. Even when it has the Halloween event in it, it has changes to 13 heroes out of the 31 total, so just a third of the cast. 8GB is still a lot. In the past, 8GB patches have included new heroes, they've included new maps, they've included quite a lot of stuff behind the scenes that maybe they're not ready to reveal just yet. And I've seen a couple of people suspecting that it's the case here. But there is a very specific reason as to why it's so big, and Blizzard have defined it as a remaster. They've restructured a lot of stuff in the game to make it clearer, and it requires the user to re-download big parts of the game which have been optimized and made smaller, just run better in general. I feel as well that this has a lot to do with Switch developers, specifically those that work in porting other IPs and other developers' games onto the Nintendo Switch. I've seen it a couple of places, but no official source, that they helped Blizzard really make Overwatch as small as possible so it could fit nicely onto the Nintendo Switch and its specifications. Because an undocked Switch obviously runs a lot worse than a PlayStation or an Xbox, so Blizzard really need to prepare for that. But like I said, Nintendo have their own developer group of porters to help port other games over to the Switch, and so they have extensive knowledge on how to optimize basically any game to make it as small and optimized as possible. And it's basically been said that they helped Blizzard really optimize their own game on PC and console, and this might be the patch to do with it. So it's not just a coincidence that we're having this big remaster patch alongside the game going onto the Switch. There seems to be a lot of correlation there. Speaking of which, Overwatch is now out on the Switch. I haven't got it myself yet. I don't really know if I want to, but let me know if you guys decide to pick it up and play it, and just let me know how you're finding it, whether you find it fun, much different. I think it's important to get the most user base that's playing the Switch to let everybody else know how good it is and if it's worth picking up. So we have the Switch version coming out. The Halloween event started yesterday. Be sure to check the skins video that went out yesterday too. And also a big patch with a lot of changes to Orisa, Sigma, nerfs there, Winston D.Va got buffed, Lucio got buffed. There's quite a lot of stuff in there, and I don't really want to go through everything, but Fusions, who is the Boston Uprising and Team UK main tank, did clear us up on whether the nerfs to Sigma and Orisa and the buffs to Winston D.Va actually affected the tank meta at all, and the answer is no, which I think most of us could have guessed. Been scrimming on the PTR for weeks for the World Cup, they're still the only tanks really being played. There are a few other bits and pieces on supports and DPS that have changed, not too much. I think overall it's less Bastion, but it's just a nice clarification on whether these changes do affect anything. Whilst I would like to see dive back, I would say it's not true that it would be coming back in any fashion. Might do in competitive, you know, when we're playing in plat or whatever, because the meta isn't as strict then, you can be a bit more lenient, but in general, Orisa Sigma is still the way to go. Now that we've gone over all of that, just all of the news that you want to be aware of, we can now sort of go over my impressions of Project A and the announcement that Riot is working on a tactical shooter that looks like it is a hybrid between CSGO and Overwatch. And I've seen a lot of people, including XQC, sort of say, hey Blizzard, you gotta watch out, BlizzCon needs to be big in order you to keep up, otherwise you're gonna have a dead game. I feel like that's a very knee-jerk reaction, whilst I'm very excited to see what Riot does with a tactical shooter, especially with how good it looks on screen. I'm very much on the same side of Iostux, where he tweeted 30 seconds of alpha gameplay footage and people are already calling it Game of the Year, looking to make a career out of it. I think the Game of the Year bit is a bit of a hyperbolic statement. I don't think anybody's actually said that, but we don't know anything about its mechanics, characters, abilities, game modes, what's OP, what isn't, how they intend to balance it. We just know that they have a big focus on the competitive side, looking at stuff like cheaters, netcode, low latency, dedicated servers. Everything that they spoke about was about the competitive aspect as opposed to the characters and the lore in the universe. Do I I think that this game is going to kill Overwatch? No, but I think it will provide a good amount of competition. I do think it's going to be in the same ecosystem. Granted, Riot said themselves that this is going to be a tactical-based character shooter, which is different in the sense of Overwatch, because Overwatch is objective-based, moving payloads, taking objectives. This looks like it's all about sort of kills, similar to CSGO and Rainbow Six Siege again, where you can see on screen after this character gets a second kill, it comes up saying round 1. So it means that the whole round system of just kill the enemy team before they kill you is seemingly going to be a part of this game, which is different to Overwatch. But because it's a character-based shooter, of course there's going to be a lot of crossover. The design is much more cartoony, much like Fortnite and Overwatch in comparison to CSGO and Siege, which is a bit more serious, and it's a bit more fantastical, as opposed to set in a sci-fi-esque way, if that makes sense. The reason why I think it's going to be good for Overwatch is because Overwatch over the past couple of years since it's been out has become very complacent in its genre, because it's the only game that is in that sort of class-based shooter genre that's doing really, really well. MOBAs have always had competition. League of Legends and Dota are the firm examples of that. Fortnite is also now in competition with stuff like Apex Legends, PUBG, and there's a lot of stuff as well for MMORPGs, PvE shooters like Borderlands and Destiny, you get the idea. But in the genre of class-based shooters, it feels that Overwatch really is the only one competing in there. In fact, a lot of games came out at a similar time, Battleborn, Lawbreakers, that just sort of died over time because they couldn't compete with Overwatch. The only one that seems to have succeeded in sort of keeping its head above water is Paladins. It's a pretty decent game in its own right. So I feel because of that, Overwatch to an extent has become very complacent in its balancing. I also feel that because it hasn't really worked out what it wants to do with a casual and a competitive audience, that it doesn't really cater for either side, you know? There's a lot of competitive players that want Overwatch to feel more competitive, to not have heroes like Brigitte or Moira or to an extent Doomfist in the game, or loads of barriers, because that takes away the competitive FPS integrity, which I agree with. However, a big portion of Overwatch's core audience are casual players that don't really play competitive FPS games, but like playing the characters, like the lore and the story, and want to see more of that. But the issue is, because the game is sort of competitive and people only really play competitive Overwatch, for the most part at least, they feel like the game doesn't represent them, and so they go off and play other games instead. So Overwatch is really catering to neither side at this point, but also trying to cater to both sides. The main thing about Riot's Project A, our parent name is Ares, is that they've come out guns blazing saying this is a competitive shooter, which puts Overwatch in a position where it either has to compete with Project A by making themselves more competitive, catering to that side, making sure that there's FPS integrity in there, or they sort of go towards the casual side. Really depends on BlizzCon at this point. Overwatch 2 is meant to be sort of like PvE expansions of sort, kind of Left 4 Dead-esque, which is catering to the lore story side to a more casual player base. So I think Overwatch now is in a position where it needs to decide how it wants to project itself over the next 5 to 10 years. Because if it doesn't, that competitive side of Overwatch is just going to migrate over to games like Apex, like they are already, but I guess most importantly to this new class-based shooter, Project A. So there is an opportunity that Overwatch could lose a big portion of its player base, but Blizzard aren't stupid, believe it or not. But with any luck, this just sort of lights a fire under their ass. That's what I'm hoping for, and that's what I sort of expect. They are no longer in this invincible position in this genre. They no longer have monopoly over the entire sort of gauge. Now they have competition from big games and big developers coming straight for their jugular. So they really need to be careful and really need to decide where they're going for in the future. BlizzCon should tell us all whether we should be hyped or whether, like last year, it's another disappointing year, and that's where people might start to look elsewhere. That's not to say that Overwatch and Project A can't coexist in this ecosystem. Fortnite and Apex Legends, granted Apex Legends just peaks and troughs quite a lot, but both games are existing in that genre, and both of which I think would do really well. Different strokes for different folks, but you know, you can enjoy playing Fortnite and Apex or PUBG, whatever interests you. But they all exist in that same ecosystem, and they all do pretty well. That's assuming that Project A ends up being a good game. It could flop, much like a lot of the other games. It really depends, but considering it's Riot and they have this competitive integrity, that might be enough. But they're not the first game to sort of come into the area guns blazing and then sort of fall off the bandwagon quite a bit, so we'll have to see on that front. But I hope that this sort of scares Overwatch into being a bit more deliberate with how it projects itself in the future, because right now they're neither catering to the competitive side nor the casual side, and I think that's a bit of an issue. That's kind of why I'm hoping that Overwatch 2 is a brand new game in its own right, that it's just this PvE, I don't know, Borderlands 3-esque game, so the people that are interested in the casual side of the FPS, that just want to play for the lore and the story and progression in that aspect, they can. And then Overwatch can be made to be a lot more competitive in order to compensate for that. That's what I'm hoping for, but I don't really think that that's likely. We'll have to see. But let me know what you guys think, whether you're excited for Project A or not, whether you feel it's going to kill Overwatch. Do let me know in the comments below. I'm really interested to see what the Overwatch community have to say about this. We don't know enough about how good Project A is. I think it's very easy to sort of wear rose-tinted glasses and hope that Project A becomes the new Overwatch, a game that's based around competitive aspects as opposed to adding more barriers into the game and frustrating that competitive side in a similar sense. But it could be that Project A has similar issues, you know, certainly down the line I imagine that being very much the case. That's my 2 cents on that, but that's everything that I wanted to talk about today. Thank you very much for watching. As I said, we're headed over to EGX. Thursday, Friday, and Saturday of this month, we'll be having some sort of like game shows, I suppose, at the event, where you could play, do some workshop game modes, and also win some prizes. So if you are attending, be sure to check up on us. You can find more details on what's going on and when it's going on our Twitter, which is @OWCentral. Let me know what you think of Project A, whether you're excited for it, whether you expect it to sort of kill off Overwatch or whatever. Do let me know in the comments below. Check out Unmanned by HP if you haven't already, and until next time, take care, we'll see you then.